Hi, my name's Shawn Shaler. That's my friend Chris Ford, aka The Objective Geek of YouTube and Twitter. Welcome to Avatar: The Last Podcasters. We got one more week of work. We're going to keep it short and sweet because things are a little busy. Summer vacations and trips
I'm
and
getting
all sorts of
drunk
things.
right now. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
I'm not getting drunk.
And so we're going to do one more short episode, and then next week we're going to come back with. You know what's weird is I don't really think I know what we're coming back with. I assume you've got some ideas.
Possibly ranking all the episodes of the Netflix Avatar.
Ooh, okay.
Uh, could also do. Eventually, went to just do best fights of the Avatar probably an episode of best fights of Avatar: Last Airbender, the cartoon,
Hmm?
and then best fight of Legend of Korra. I was thinking about doing best fights of the Netflix show, and then I realized, wait, we haven't done best fights of either of the other two shows.
Okay. That could be really cool few weeks in there. Absolutely. And so, yeah, eventually we'll come back and we'll do that stuff and it'll be great. But in the interim, just because we've been talking about games and I like the word ancillary, I'm going to keep saying that. Games and ancillary
I
media
kept
and
trying to
such.
look. I kept trying to look for the. I'm like, I know there's the word out there, and then I finally found it.
That's a good word. And I can see how if you couldn't think of it, it would be one of those things that bothered you until you did. Like when you know there's just the right word, but you can't
Yeah,
quite. I'm
I
glad
didn't
you
even have
found
to
it.
Google. Didn't have to Google it. I actually remembered it. Surprised myself because usually, as people probably know from this podcast, or just us talking, if I'm thinking of a word, it takes a while, or I just never find that right word that I was thinking of.
Yeah. We can't even, sometimes we can't even figure out what word on the nitpick to take, take, what's the,
Umbrage
umbrage. That's the big
or
one. Take
exception.
umbrage with. We can't even think of the words on our own scale sometimes. But, so one more weird short episode today, but I kind of enjoy thinking about it, so I had fun putting it together. Especially this one. It was way harder to find the bad ancillary media, so I'm way more excited for today's top
Yeah.
5 good ancillary media. So ancillary media must be licensed, not fan stuff. Just anything other than the original
Yeah,
Legend of
because if
Korra
it was
show.
fan stuff, Kitsune X Zeta would be number one.
100%. He'd be number 2 for me, if we're being really honest. Yeah, that's
Okay,
my,
well,
yeah, spoiler
I
alert.
think it would be number one. What fan project would be number one?
Oh, I thought including, I was thinking of
Oh,
Ancillary
including.
Plus. Yeah, I don't know if
Oh,
there's a
okay.
better fan project.
Uh,
Maybe there
it will
is. I
be.
don't know.
I was like, Sean, I don't think you even know of any other fan
Nope,
project.
sure don't. Not my ballpark. I
Yeah, no. In fact, it might not even make top. No, it'll make top five. Let's see
yeah,
here.
no, I'm going crazy. I'm placing Kitsune at 2. I'm putting all the pressure on Chris.
He's
Chris,
putting pressure on us to create.
my number 3 favorite fan project is Chris's old YouTube videos. That's my number 3 ancillary project. But we're taking those out. No Chris videos, no Kitsune, and we're talking about ancillary projects. So licensed, but not from the main animated series, Korra or Avatar. And I'm gonna start with number 5, Chris. And it's the one and only comic that I have read. No, one of the 2 only comics that I have read. And it is The Search. And I'm gonna ask you to recollect if you remember how I took in this comic. I watched a YouTube video where a small group of people read and recreated it. So like on the screen it would show the panel and then they like voice acted it, including sound effects. And it was very goofy. But props to those guys for doing it. It was a lot of fun. They seem to have a lot of fun. More importantly, it was a very good comic. It was the type of material that I think fits what a comic book series being adjacent to the animated series should have been. Like a meaningful topic,
Yeah.
but not direct to the plot, not directly involved in the plot of the animated series itself. It was good.
Yeah, that's a good one. My number five is somewhat controversial because I wouldn't even define it as great. but I enjoy it and I enjoy playing it. This is the Legend of Korra video game from Platinum. I think the mechanics in that game is great. I like they added a additional villain that was different. I don't I guess I don't really love the villain, but I like that the villain is there and it's something new and new lore. Um, but I just like a lot of stuff about the game. Like I will go replay the game right now. I really like that game.
Chris, my number 4 is the PS4 Korra Platinum Games game, and I paired them together. I put the 3DS game in there also.
Okay. Yeah.
They share basically the same story, but they're very different games. So the Platinum Games one that we're both talking about is a beat 'em up that's got some other things smattered in there. And then the 3DS one is a like tactical turn-based strategy. And so it's way less sort of sexy, I guess. I don't know how to describe it, but it's just a solid game, and the elements lend themselves very well to a strategy game. So I lumped them together. They came out at the same time. They share a story and a villain, just different games. That's my number 4.
Mhm. We are very much in sync on 5 and 4. My number 4 is The Search.
Nice.
Agree with pretty much everything you said. This is one comic that like I had to have the hardcover, big, huge library edition to it. In fact, I think that might be the only comic book that I have that version of. Um, but it's a great comic. It dives more into Zuko. It does answer the question of what happened to Ursa. It delves more into Zula's madness. It has a few little twists and turns that were at least impactful to the characters. Um, but I really enjoy that comic. It's definitely my favorite Avatar comic.
You taught or introduced me to the idea of like, and I'd never considered it before, but when talking about comics and just noting there's only so much or so many things you could do without infringing upon or over impacting like the main story. So it's just, I think it hit a really nice sweet spot of the story that it wanted to tell being useful and impactful and but still within the scope of the comics. Chris,
Yeah.
my number 3. This is where it gets real tight for me. Was my 3-2. I think was the hardest choice. My 3 is the Yang Chen novels. I lumped those together. The Yang Chen novels, and can't say too much else without a very obvious spoiler alert. But the Yang Chen novels were very good. I enjoyed the first one quite a bit, and the second one less.
Really, I think we're opposite on that.
I do think we're
Yeah,
a
yeah,
little.
we're
I think you enjoyed the second more than the first.
yeah. But speaking of which, I enjoyed it enough that it is also my number 3. We can,
Makes sense. Are we gonna have a
thing is,
shared top 3 and a samey top?
I have a feeling we're not, but we'll see.
Oh, you think so?
I'm curious where you're at with number 2
Oh, okay.
because
Well, sorry, I interrupted your Yang Chen thoughts though.
oh, you know. uh, I I I really liked the first Yang Chin book, but it was like just wasn't as much action and stuff going on. But the second book I enjoyed a lot more. Like I still, well, this might anyway. I enjoyed the second book a lot more, and together, I think they work really, really well together. Like the after reading the second one, the first one got better in retrospect. But I just love Yang Chen. Like her characteristic is my favorite characteristics of any Avatar. Possibly any character in the universe. Because Yang Chen is so interesting, and she's so. I love characters who are an oxymoron. Like Yang Chen is peaceful and wise and seems very holy, but also she she manages money and manipulates people and can be somewhat controlling and things like that. But also she can be like comical at times. She just feels like a really real character. not saying she's my favorite character. My favorite character is Iroh, but just her characterization, I think, is probably second to none when it comes to the Avatar universe.
You know, I've only read each of those once. It's probably time to give them another one through, just to see if my feelings have changed. I'm hard to
Yeah,
motivate to read books, which I assume you know how that feels. Also,
yeah. I think on my trip coming up, I might just download the audiobooks and re-listen to them.
I need to get the audiobooks.
They're on Hoopla.
Oh, good, excellent, good old free hoopla.
I know. It's like how is this free?
So my number two and my number three were the hardest because I have very similar feelings about them. Of like, I absolutely see their qualities and just get a little frustrated with their qualms. But I see the quality, had a really hard time deciding. But number two, I did the Netflix series,
Holy
and
crap!
yeah, we got the
What?
most. We were one off from a perfect match, Chris. Uh,
That's funny though.
I really, it wasn't hard to put it in the top three because I'm glad it exists and it does good for what it is. Like I said, I've got my qualms just like I have the qualms of the Yingqin, but ultimately I'm glad to have it in the universe. I'm glad to have experienced it. Yeah, that's my number two.
Yeah, my number two is also the Netflix show. Same things. I know I'm pretty confident that I love it more than you.
Yeah, I think that's
Um,
fair. Yeah.
while fully accepting that it has some faults, so some faults that I think that people don't really see, and some people think they have faults with it that I'm like, it's not that specific fault. It's not that big of a deal. But I mean, there's things in it that I just absolutely love. And again, I love that it's a different medium, it's a different vehicle to tell the story of Avatar: Last Airbender. It provides me just, an additional source to go to and a new interpretation that feels different but just as valid as a interpretation. And that's what it takes for IPs and stuff to grow. Like you need different interpretations of things to reach different audiences to really grow different IPs. There's a reason why my mom loves Batman 66 and I love The Dark Knight. Like different strokes for different folks, but we both love. I mean, I love Batman. She doesn't love Batman, but she loved that version of Batman.
She loved
Uh,
Adam West Batman very specifically.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, so I love that it gave, like you said, it gave us a new a new way to experience the story.
The bottom line for me was that it's a little unfair, but Yang Chen being a novel probably would have just had to work that much harder in my brain to be a number two over something else. Like, as a detriment just to be a novel as opposed to a video game or a movie or a TV show. Chris, that leaves the number one, which I have a feeling is pretty much the same, and it's the Kyoshi
Oh,
novels, which is everything we said about Yang Chen, but better.
yeah, like after reading the Kyoshi novels, I fully feel like Avatar, The Last Airbender, and Legend of Korra are like the pillars of the Avatar universe, and everything else is held up from them. And like they stand shoulder to shoulder with each other, not in terms of quality, but I think of magnitude for those people who love both shows. In the Kyoshi novels, I think is the third pillar of the Avatar universe. Like they are so freaking good. I consider them like on the same level of enjoyment of ingesting this universe as those two other shows. Kyoshi is such a freaking interesting character. Her story is it's the perfect story to it's the perfect different story to tell from Avatar, Aang's, and Korra's story. Like it's like Kill Bill. It's a story of vengeance, and then the story afterwards of that aftermath. That first novel is just like freaking amazing. The second one's also really really good, I would say also maybe just that first one just knocks your socks off.
I think that again, it being at a disadvantage of being a novel, and I just don't like reading that much. It's amazing how highly I think of these to feel this strongly about them. Like they are among in my very limited experience of books that I read. They're probably the first one's probably a top 2 or 3 book for me, and the second one's probably still a top 10 book for me. Again, pretty limited scope of books, but they picked a great slice, right? It's not just great writing. They picked a great story slice to tell, and they actually did tell it very well.
I am trying really hard to get my 11, about to be 12-year-old daughter to read it because it's the perfect type of book for that age. Because she needs books that are more long form books to start reading. Um, Things I know she'll like it. That's the thing about my daughter is that I'll tell her, do this, eat this, or watch this, or do this. You will like it. And then she's just like, oh no. And then she ends up eating chocolate chip cookie dough ice cream. And now she's like, oh, this is my favorite ice cream. Or it's like, oh, watch this anime. You'll love it. Okay. Oh, this is now my favorite anime. Like, just,
And you're
I'm your
like, I know. Duh.
I'm your father. I know what you would probably like. Just do what I say.
I've never grown out of that phase where if it's not my idea, it's a bad idea. So I kind of empathize with her on that front. But
The
yeah,
funny thing is that I tricked her. My daughter loves anime now, like loves it. Like all she wants for her birthday is like anime stuff. And I let her watch Attack on Titan, which is
too
not
much for her. Give her
yeah.
nightmares.
Um, and she watched it. She binged the whole thing in a week, and she's like, and I asked afterwards, like, all right, well, what's your favorite anime? She's like, it's Attack on Titan. And I'm like, Attack on Titan, the show you just watched is now your favorite anime of all time. So yeah, the twists and turns and stuff were just so good, and so now she's all into it. But
That's
the
adorable up to the fact that she's talking about Attack on Titan.
the thing is that Attack on Titan's one. I told her before she watched it. I'm like, I'm not sure you're ready for the show, not because the violence and stuff and people getting their bodies torn in half by giant monsters and getting eaten alive, and it's very morbid, but just the social commentary and the discussion about morality on it. But like after like every other episode, we were having discussions about discuss. Really, it was just me talking to her. Discussions about morality and like, all right, well, what does a person do in this case? Talk about history, like, well, in real world history, like they're using this as an example to show how like Nazi Germany was and during the Holocaust and stuff like this. Um, so I would have felt a little bit irresponsible if I just gave her this show and just said, "Here you go," without providing some of the extra discussion points on it.
It makes me think of that Good Place episode where they're doing the trolley problem, but then Michael keeps putting them on an actual
I,
trolley and trying to decide which people to hit.
well, I brought up the trolley problem. I brought up. I was like, "Well, this is actually a lot like a trolley problem," and then she was like, "Trolley? You mean like in England?" I'm like, "No, well, they do have trolleys, and that's what they call trains, but there are trolleys in the United States." And I brought up the Good Place trolley problem. I was like, all right, well, what if you have 5 people here and you have one person here? But then what if that's me right there and these are people that you don't know and then stuff like that? Like just telling her that like sometimes these decisions aren't doesn't come down to what's a good choice and what's a bad choice. It's a thing of morality. But the
I can tell you right now that 12-year-old Shawn would have just stared at you real blank. Real blank.
uh, I think one day she'll look back on these because I try to impart wisdom on her all the time, and sometimes she's She just doesn't want to hear it. It's not that she's like
Because
rude.
she's
She doesn't want to hear it.
12.
Yeah, it's fine. But I do believe one day she'll be like, "Oh, Dad was talk, Daddy was talking about this and stuff," and I'm like, "Oh yeah, I remember when Dad told me this." And I don't know. I also have a morbid thoughts about like dying, and one day she'll still look back and be like, "Oh, Dad would try to teach me this if I ever died before." Anyway, yeah, morbid.
Mm,
On a brighter
kind
note,
of used to it in this house.
on a brighter note, she she's only into anime because I tricked her into it. Because I would like 4 years ago, she got kind of tired of me reading her bedtime stories, and I'd be like, and I would just start making up stories on top of my head, and I kind of got tired of doing that, and I would ask her, "Do you want me to just tell you?" Like I would tell her the story of just the Dark Knight movies, and I would go through them, and then I asked her, "Do you want to go through the story of Yu Yu Hakusho?" She's like, "No, that's anime." I was like, "Oh, okay." So then I just changed the names of the characters and said I made it up. And then by the end of it, she was really into it, and I said, "You know what? That was based off of Yu Yu Hakusho." And then she's like, "What? You tricked me?" I'm like, "Yeah, you're welcome."
Blew her tiny mind.
Anyway,
That's fantastic. Well, hey, that's our top 5 ancillary Avatar: The Last Airbender media, excluding fan items. Otherwise, it would have been a very different list. But thanks for watching. Thanks for bearing with us through some short weeks. If you haven't watched the 2 weeks ago, we got to interview Jose from I already forgot the name, Tilting Point,
Avatar. Oh
from
yeah, yeah.
Avatar, the publisher of the Avatar Realms Collide. And we weren't really sure what to expect of that, and we're not mobile game people, but that guy just has a lot of passion for what he does, and I think it showed through. So while I hope the game is good, at a bare minimum, the good thing that came out of it was we got to record an episode with that guy, and that was really cool. So if you haven't watched it yet, go back and watch that from 2 weeks ago now. But in the meantime, my name's Shawn. That's my friend Chris Ford, aka the Objective Geek of YouTube and Twitter. Thanks for watching. Any form of positive interaction you can leave us, likes, thumbs ups, comments, positive reviews. It's important. My wife said she'd rather be with someone famous. So if we can make us famous, no, I'm just kidding. My wife would never say that. they, she
Sean,
she couldn't
I'd
even
rather be with
jokingly.
more face.
She couldn't even jokingly say that. It'd never make it out of her mouth in one
I'd
piece.
rather be with someone more. Thing is, it's such an outlandish statement because you're not. That's something you would say. That's something that a stuck up, want to make it a Hollywood person would say to someone who's like
A B
a C-list
celebrity.
celebrity.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I need to be with someone more famous.
That'd be a ludicrous thing for a normal person to say to a normal person. But also,
Like imagine going to my wife and be like, "Listen, I love you, but I need to be with someone more famous." Why?
and so
What?
from your wife, you upgrade to school board member. I don't know. Like, what tier of celebrity is your wife? It's not a commentary on her character, Chris. Just the number of people that know her.
Uh, Z, I guess. I would be. What would you rank someone with the millions of views on YouTube? A H list?
My gut reaction was F. My
Okay.
gut reaction was F.
Yes.
Right, because we're at the point where YouTube celebrities could almost be B list celebrities, maybe almost be close, right? So I was like, all right, well,
Yeah. Oh, yep.
so
Yeah,
if Mr.
definitely.
Beast is a B list, not a A list, but if he's a B list, you could say, I mean, you could make the argument, but I was like, how
But
many?
he, but he's the top
Yeah,
1%.
he's the big. So how many steps below him is Chris? And I was like, oh well, B C D E F, like I don't know, 5 6 steps.
Uh,
I think pyramid too, right? These aren't
yeah.
same size steps, but like a pyramid. Like A is this,
Yeah.
B is
Yeah.
that, right? So the bucket gets bigger. Heather is like a F tier celebrity in Olathe, but outside of that, not so much. She might even
You
be.
think she'll ever be in those commercials about your loved one
She
needs
was.
to? Plan.
She
Oh,
was,
she was okay. Well,
yeah,
I'm
she
not.
was in
Sorry,
a,
I'm not. Okay. Well,
yeah,
I'm not
go.
in Olathe, so
Uh,
I missed
I
the.
don't, I don't know if you'd see them in Topeka because they're the naming convention, like they own the homes there, the funeral homes, but I think the naming convention is different, so I don't think they show the same commercial. The naming convention of the funeral home, but yeah, she got to be in some commercials and good.
Oh,
Actually,
nice.
I'm confident that in an Olathe scope,
She might.
that Heather's at least E in an Olathe scope.
You know what? She might need to be with someone more
She
famous.
might need to, because I'm in Olathe. I'm like a X. X.
This episode's supposed to end.
No, you're right. It's time to go. All right. Thanks everybody for watching. We will see you next time.
If you watch this, let me know because I'm curious. Anybody watch this talk?
Tell me what tier of celebrity you are in your town. Explain yourself. And we will applaud you and possibly retweet your tweet. Possibly. All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Actually, I have to go into work tomorrow. This is the since starting this at my job for 4 years. This will be the first week I go in every single day.